What's up, guys? I am back. Um, Tomorrow I might do 3 videos. I've never done this before, but I might. So, because I didn't do the bands I love on on Smashing Pumpkins, so I'll do that tomorrow along with the Queen one, and then I'm also gonna review the Last Boy Scout. So that'll be I have 2 random reviews, so it'll be that one. And Friday I am gonna review Last Action Hero, just because I watched those 2 movies recently, and I was just like, fuck it, I'll review it. So, but today I want to talk about, because y'all know I'm a wrestling fan, and I've been going on about like what I think the problems are with WWE. So I'm gonna be going on how I would fix WWE, and I'm gonna keep it on WWE because I'm a WWE guy. I'm just not an AEW fan, and maybe eventually I'll do a video on why I'm just not an AEW fan, but I'm just not. So even with the CM Punk thing, because I'm sorry, well, there's no point in watching the whole show if just CM Punk's just gonna be there. Like, sorry, I'm just not. And eventually I'm gonna do a CM Punk video. I just don't want to do it this week. But I want to talk about how I would fix WWE. So, number one, before let me take a hit first. Number one, we need to start focusing. It's like I think my number one problem with wrestling today, we need to get back to focusing on building character and just building personalities. There's too many guys today in WWE that are just have no personality. It's all this focus on in ring stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you look at the biggest names in the history. Obviously, Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Stone Cold, then The Rock. I love The Rock, but that's the truth. Triple H, even who was the more technical between the three of them, between him, Rock, and Austin. Triple H was always the more technical, but even he understood you had to have a character. Look at Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, all great in the ring, but they all understood you have to have a personality to last. You cannot just be a guy who's good in the ring, because when you're just that, to me, you're just boring. And I'm sorry, I get people like you. I don't want to look at WWE how people look at UFC, where UFC it is more about your fighting skill than personality wise. Like, I mean, UFC there are personalities, but you know, that's. But a lot of the time it is more like focus on that, like your actual fighting. So whereas WWE and wrestling in general was never about that. Look at the biggest names, like and the names I just mentioned. They're Undertaker. I'll throw him in there. Bret Hart, even who I'm not the biggest Bret Hart fan. I think he's a legend and all that, but I just never was. But even he in '97, before he left, before he left WWE, he got a personality when he was that heel character. A lot of these guys understood you have to have a personality. So that's the one thing I want to start building more personalities. We got to start focusing on that. There's too much of this in ring stuff, and that goes into my other thing. Raw needs to go back to being 2 hours. Why is Raw 3 hours when if you're gonna do a 3 hour epic, you better have something ready. Like at least back then when I got back into wrestling, so this was 2008. When I got back into wrestling, they did a 3 hour Raw every now and then. If it's like the draft, or if it was like the Slammies, or like it was like a big type of Raw. At least then, it was not every week. It was like every few months. Even they didn't do it that close to each other either. It was like several months. They would only probably do a couple times a year. I think if you want to do that, that's fine. But we need to go back to 2 hours, because I think 2 hours is that right amount, that right point for these regular shows. Let the pay-per-views be 3 hours, and that's the other thing. Pay-per-views need to go back to being 3 hours, unless it's like fucking. I'll give an exception for like maybe WrestleMania. I'm open to maybe 4 hours max, but only WrestleMania. Honestly, I think it needs to be 3 hours. Like back in the day, a lot of these pay-per-views were about 3 hours. They were not 4 hours. You got fucking a lot of even like just these basic pay-per-views that are like almost 4.5 hours. Might as well be watching like the Snyder Cut or fucking Lord of the Rings or some shit. Like, I'm not gonna watch that, especially when you have no characters in a lot of these matches, so it's just pointless matches for 20 minutes, but then that's gonna go to my other point. We gotta cut down the matches on Raw and SmackDown. Not every match needs to be a 20-minute classic. Remember back in the day, there were just sometimes you would, like your big powerhouse dudes, like guys like Brock Lesnar, Kane, Undertaker, who first came in, they would just come in and squash guys in like 2 minutes. Why not do that? It showed the audience how badass these guys are. Not every match needs to be a 20-minute classic every fucking week. Because at that point, there's no point in watching pay-per-view matches if you're just gonna do that every week. So I want to go back to focusing on that. I was even thinking about this. If you're gonna do a 20-minute thing on Raw or SmackDown, let it be a blow off or like a feud ender, right? Like let's say you have these guys who've been feuding for 2 months, and then the final pay per view one wins, but now it's like 1-1 or something, like tied. You could have like the tiebreaker that following Raw. At least if you want to have that be 20 minutes, fine. But that's fucking weeks of build up, and then you do it. But when you just have it every week, it's just not special. And then it's not special, and then you get these, and then a lot of, once again, that's the other problem. We need to start focusing on psychology. So many of these matches have no fucking psychology. They're just these long, quote unquote, epics where it's just basically a bunch of false finishes. They took basically the opposite of what made Undertaker and Shawn Michaels great at WrestleMania 25 and 26. But mainly the 25 match. That was incredible. But the weeks of build-up is what made that match great. To me, that is ultimately what will make a truly great match, is weeks of build-up to it. Rock Austin from 17, even 15. Really, any three of the matches. But 17 is the best. What made that match great was, or the matches themselves just all around great, was the weeks of build up, the storytelling. That's what wrestling needs to get back to. And then the matches themselves were telling the story. The only match I can say in recent time, I did watch SummerSlam. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched Edge and Rollins. That did tell a story. Even Roman and Cena told a story. But they weren't 20-minute classics. There was storytelling in these matches, and that's the thing. That's what psychology is in wrestling, is storytelling. Rock Austin was storytelling. Up until the matches I mentioned, in about a year, the last match I can think was Roman and Jey Uso from last fall. But everything else is these pointless, oh, we gotta have a dive outside the ring, false finishes galore. And the thing is, you can do the false finishes. There's a way to do it. Rock Austin 3 was practically that. Even a lot of their matches were kind of false finishes, but it was done brilliantly. Today is, oh, let's have these guys have a 20-minute match, and it's just a million false finishes. There's no storytelling to it. There's no flow. We need to get back to that. I get people like NXT, but NXT is another one. We need to start making that the legit developmental it was supposed to be. Let's have it be like what OVW, and look at that OVW class of 2002 if you're a wrestling fan. Yeah, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, John Cena, Batista, and you look at these guys now. All four of those guys were like that next generation after Rock, Austin, Triple H, Undertaker. Well, mainly Rock, Austin, Triple H, who were put that Attitude Era. Because Undertaker was almost a carryover, because Undertaker came in 90. But yeah, they were that next generation. FCW was kind of the same thing, but it needs to be that's what NXT needs to be today. Bring some of those guys up who are ready. Because at this point, we need to focus on NXT being a developmental. Let Raw and SmackDown, we need to start focusing on those shows again. Because now it's just another wrestling show that has the same problem. And then also, let's add to the fact NXT has its own pay-per-views now. So we have other pay-per-views on top of pay-per-views. Like this past week, we had SummerSlam. Then you had the fucking NXT TakeOver. Which, I'm going to be honest, a lot of the NXT TakeOvers are just the same type of fake epic matches. I'm not saying there were never any good ones, but a lot of them were just that. I don't know. It just got repetitive. It wasn't about building stars. That's why NXT the format they're doing now just doesn't work. Because no stars have been built. A lot of these guys were just guys from the indies. No actual homegrown talent. And that's what needs to happen. We need to start focusing on these homegrown talents. Let NXT be that developmental. You can have it still have events, but let the events be private. No, have them be televised. Let maybe like the bigger names like OVW. What made it work is every now and then you have a Kane, a Triple H, a Kurt Angle, who are this was the height of the Attitude Era. This was like 2000, 2001. These guys would come down there every now and then and show up and prop up these guys. That's what needs to kind of happen again. We need to go back to that format. This like this NXT making it, it's just practically its own. It might as well just be its own division. It just has not worked because when you bring these guys to the main roster, they don't work. And I get people want to blame Vince, but it's not Vince. It's just, let me be honest, a lot of these guys don't have modern like that casual appeal. People need to understand. I get people want wrestling to focus on the hardcores, and I'm not even the biggest MCU guy, but this is the truth. You want to know why that worked? That casual appeal, and that's what made that work. And I think the same thing needs to happen with wrestling. A lot of these guys just don't have that. They're just the problem is a lot of them are just guys. It's because it's also this overly focus on not building characters and personalities. We gotta focus on, oh, you're good in the ring. You wrestle 20 minutes. Let's have you go out there and do that. But not actually tell a story. So in the women's division, the other problem is pretty much the same problem. Like in the men's division, there's no actual stars because it's always the same women getting pushed because they want, especially today, they want to do this like feminist, like women's revolution, but it's just that means just push boring women. I'm sorry, I get people like Charlotte, I get people like Becky, I find them boring. I find Sasha boring to be honest. You have so much women like people don't like her, but I'm gonna fucking say it. Sable. She was the female Austin, and if you're gonna talk about it in terms of ratings, she brought attention. China, she brought attention to the women's division. Lita had a character. Trish had a character. But a lot of different characters too. People like to trash that Divas division era, but at least back then, the women had personalities. Today's women are, it's just, it's the same problem with the men. It's this focus on work rate and not because to be a legitimate women's wrestler today, you have to be good in the ring. So you have women like not Sable, that's Mandy Rose, who's not, of course, you're going to have people who will counter and be like, oh, you just want to push them because they're hot. It's like, okay, that's partially true, I'll admit that, but the actual truth is they have personality. Mandy Rose, in her feud, I don't watch every week anymore, but I would watch segments on YouTube, and she had a feud, this was last summer, with Sonya Deville, and the build-up was great, and Mandy showed she had personality, but she's been there for fucking almost 4 years now in terms of the main roster. Has not won the women's title, either SmackDown or Raw, because she's not the most technical, so that we can't push her. We can't push women like Liv Morgan, or women like people can trash her, but Eva Marie actually at least has a personality. In booking decisions, she should be women's champion right now on Raw, but they don't want to push her because she's not the greatest in the ring, and we gotta show we're good in the ring because that's all it's about. So once again, we gotta push these wrestlers who have no personality, and then wonder why ratings are so low. When back in the day, Raw and SmackDown were getting insane ratings, including the women. By the way, this wasn't just it was a men's. No, women. There were legitimate women back then because they all had personality. You had Ivory, who eventually became part of the I forgot what they're called. I can't think of the name now. They're like this PC group basically. But yeah, like she was part of that, and she showed she had a personality when she was part of that group. Like that was the other thing. Like they would put women in like let's say there was a stable. They would put a woman there to be like, oh, she's the dominant in that division because they want to show how dominant that division was. That stable was. They were dominant in every division. Like you would have maybe one who was like the main champion, the like secondary champion, and then the women's champion or like tag champion. The championships were important then too. Now we just kind of give it to anybody because we feel like, oh, everyone needs to be champion and it needs to be, it's a participation trophy. That's not how it works. Like movies, we understand not every fucking actor can be the lead. But in wrestling, we used to understand that, but not now. Because now everyone needs to be WWE champion one time. But then we get shit champions like Jack Swagger back in 2010. Or you get shit champions like Kofi Kingston. I get people like Kofi. I don't hate the dude, but he is not WWE champion material. He just doesn't have it. And people cry because he lost to Lesnar. I'm supposed to believe that dude can do anything against Brock. Get the fuck out of here. He should not. He's not WWE champion material. He works in that middleweight division. There's nothing wrong with that. Like Crash Holly, you would not put him in that main event back in the Attitude Era. Like, what the fuck? Not everybody should be in the main event. Because that's what made the main event that much special, is that they didn't put every fucking jabroni in it. Now, pretty much that's what it is, and then now and then wonder why the fucking needle's not getting moved. Because you're putting like everybody there. Not everyone deserves that spot. There are roles. You don't put Crash Holly in the main event with like The Rock and Austin. You know, or a Dean Malenko. Like, these guys don't have personality. Or they do have personality, but they don't fit that main event. You want to put Crash Holly? Imagine putting Crash Holly in like 1999, 2000, in like the main event with like The Rock, Austin, Triple H, Undertaker, you know, Mankind. Imagine putting him there. It wouldn't fucking work. So that's what needs to happen. We need to go back to like everybody had their role. That's why people like to shit on R-Truth, because why aren't you trying to fight for a bigger position? It's like R-Truth understands I'm not the main event guy. That's just not me. I'm cool with just, I understand my spot. People like to say that's complicit. That's just, you're just dealing and accepting it, but that's the truth. It's like not everyone's a fucking lead actor, right? You know, not everyone's the lead singer in a fucking band. You know, in general, WWE just needs to cut down. Cut down on the amount of events. Get rid of shit like 205 Live. What's the point? That's just a waste of fucking airtime. You're just having these events nobody's watching. Who the fuck cares? Put these guys in the main roster or put them in developmental and then bring them up. But get rid of shit like NXT UK. Get rid of all these stupid sideshows. So that's what I would do. But I want WWE just to get back to just... I would bring WWE back to just... Let's be an entertainment show. Let Raw, SmackDown be the shows where you build up feuds. Maybe not have 1,000,000 matches. And maybe the main event match is like the longest one. But maybe every other match can be like 5, 6, 7 minutes. But back in the day when I watch Attitude Era clips all the time. In actuality, a lot of these matches were like 7, 8 minutes, but they felt long. Because these matches had flow. These matches didn't need to be ridiculously long to feel epic. You were just getting stories being told in the ring, but also just with personalities. Because I want to just get back to that kind of point. Let the pay-per-views. Another thing, we need to like go back to like a simple just stage. Raw. Look at that Raw arena from like 2000, the 2000s, or just either the Attitude or Ruthless era. Same thing with SmackDown with like the Fist. I want to go back to simple sets like that. Let the pay-per-views have like the more elaborate sets. I don't even like the rings with the LED. It's too much. I want to go back to an era where SmackDown is just the Fist and then a regular blue ring with blue ropes. Raw, you have that like that Attitude Era stage fucking worked. It had that like even the way it's shot, you have that like gritty feel. Like you felt like you were watching like some crazy shit's about to happen because it had that gritty feel. But when you have this like polished, it just doesn't work. So I just want to go back to the simple things with WWE. So that's the point of this video. But other than that, tomorrow I'm gonna do a bands I love on both. It's not gonna be one video, but separate videos. Bands I love on Smashing Pumpkins and Queen, and then I will do a review on the movie Last Boy Scout. But yeah, I just want WWE just to get back to that its roots, characters, storytelling, then like the big payoff match at the pay per view. But other than that, I'm gonna cheers one more time. But fuck Warner Brothers, fuck Disney, fuck Simu Liu, fuck Kevin Smith, and fuck LeBron. I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Peace.